Hello, it's Cami Bivens, and many of you have asked for an update, had many questions about our stories, and I have not been able to do it just with everything. This last year has been a really rough year, and so I'm doing a video so everyone could know the care that we received the last year from the VA. This video is about my husband and about our family and how tough it's been, and change needs to happen. If you're not aware, I cried out last year, a little over a year ago, for help, and I have to say that the VA let me down. My husband Eric recently passed due to his battle with PTSD, and the VA didn't make it any easier for us. I'm going to do the best that I can not to cry during this video and be as honest. This is how we feel, and we need change. So this video is directed to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, the head of the VA currently, Congress, Senate, and of course the American people. I'd first like to say that our government should be ashamed of themselves for the care that our veterans receive, and change needs to happen. And for the American people, we need to stand up together, and change needs to happen because we need to be ashamed of ourselves. I want to first off start and say Eric did have PTSD along with many other disabilities, but he had a lot of other things that were happening in his body during the time, and he was in a lot of pain. About 3 years ago, I don't have my medical records in front of me, so I'm going to try to do this by memory. About 3 years ago, Eric had what we were told a cyst on his bottom right above his anus, and it would get to the size of a softball. It was very painful. And we had went to the emergency room numerous times, seen doctors at the VA numerous times. Ultimately, he ended up having about 4 surgeries at the VA. For about a year and a half, he had a wound that we would have to pack. It was about that long, and it would not heal. We would go into see the surgical clinic, and they would tell us, oh, we don't see anything, and then the next day it would bust open, and we didn't know what we were talking about. There was nothing wrong with him, but it would have pus and have a hole in it that we would have to pack. So long story short, I complained enough to get Eric to Vanderbilt Hospital towards the end of last year in 2016. He had his first surgery in Vanderbilt in 2017 around January. They went in to repair the damage that had been done at the VA. Then he had a second surgery in March or April to repair what the actual problem was. He was not treated properly when he was at the VA. Therefore, his muscle in his anus had been almost destroyed, and he was having bowel leakage. So Eric went in for a simple surgery, ended up having about 6 surgeries, can you imagine having to be put to sleep 6 times, what that does to a person? Not to mention the pain that he felt, the wound that he had. He loved to swim. He wasn't able to swim anymore. He pretty much became housebound at that point. Became very depressed just with that one incident. Now, during this other times, I want to talk about primary care a little bit. It's almost a joke to get into primary care. We waited from January until June to see a new primary care doctor. I had been requesting a new primary care doctor since Dr. Cornett. But let's just start there. How about doctors at the VA, especially primary care, have a little bit of compassion for people? I mean, if I went to a doctor and they weren't nice, I would probably not go to them again. And our veterans don't have that option, and it shouldn't be that way. They're not treated with respect. No one wants to listen to them. Everyone has the same pain. They don't examine to see where the pain comes from. Eric had been having a lot of pain, not just with his butt, but in his shoulders, his lower back, and his hips. And we had went to the emergency room, and their answer at the emergency room is like, oh, I'll just give you 5 whatever kind of pain medication, and until you could see your primary care doctor. The problem is when you go to see the primary care doctor, they tell you, oh, you just have back pain or you just have shoulder pain, and they're not seeing what the problem was. So I had called the head of the VA here. Her name is Suzanne, and she had sent Dr. Roth down to see us in the emergency room, and he had told us that he would get to the bottom of why Eric was having pain. That's what we wanted to know. Why was he having pain? He set us up to see Dr. Cornett, and I want to talk about lack of compassion. We went in, and she just kind of asked him to lift his arm, bend over, and she was like, they wanted to change his depression medication, which if you ever go through that, you don't want depression medication changed because it could be really bad. But we were there because we were promised a CT scan or MRI something, and she said that they couldn't do that. So at that moment, I told her I was going to call Dr. Roth down there. So she ended up setting up for him to have an x-ray on his shoulder and his hip, which I had to fight for that day, for him to get an x-ray done. We'll come to find out he had a tear in his shoulder and he had a tear in his hip. So this whole entire time they had been telling me that my husband's pain was in his head. Come to find out there was a reason for his pain. So they sent us to see an orthopedic surgeon outside the VA, which he had given him a steroid shot in his shoulder and in his hips. This was around November, I'd say. They had recommended physical therapy. Well, we're still waiting for physical therapy to this day. And I had requested numerous times through email and through one of my social workers. So we requested a change of a primary care, which we had done a long time ago, but recently had just got done, to see a new doctor. Well, we saw the new doctor in June, and it was a joke. We waited a really, really long time. I can't tell you how long of a time we waited. But I had recently gotten Eric into Hobbit, which is oxygen treatment, and it helps with a lot of things, but it's supposed to help with PTSD. He was supposed to go into treatment August the 2nd, and so I needed some paperwork to be printed. So we were sitting there, and I told Eric, I'm going to go to they have like a little library. I'm going to go print off some of your medical records. You call me if they call you back, because I went with him to every appointment because he was extremely overwhelmed. Did not want to be seen at the VA. And he had called me and he said, I've been waiting. I think it was like an hour and a half. He's like, I don't want to wait anymore. Well, once they heard him say that, they put him into a room. So he called me and he said, they're putting me into a room. And I was on a computer printing off medical records. And so I said, okay, I'll be there in just a minute. And he left the phone running, and the doctor came in, and I'm not trying to say bad words on here, but he was just a smart butt. Just came in, and he was being seen at a different kind of clinic than what they would normally be seen in, and he was saying, oh, they want to put you back on the helicopter. There was a magazine of a helicopter there, and I'm hearing all this through the cell phone. They want to put you on a helicopter. Well, I'll put you on the helicopter, if they want to ride you on the helicopter. And he was just couldn't let Eric talk, and Eric was trying to explain to him how he was having back pain, his shoulder was hurting, all this, and no treatment yet. And he was like, oh, everyone has back pain. And then he started, well, that's why I don't have my own practice anymore. I don't have to worry about paying the lights, water. If they want to ride you back on the helicopter. And Eric was trying to tell him about his back pain, and he said, oh, everyone has back pain. So he didn't really examine him or anything. Long story short, my husband told him off, and I'm hearing all this, so I'm trying to get to him. So that day I called the head of the VA in Middle Tennessee, and I also called a gentleman, Mr. Dole, in Washington, and left him a voicemail. Did not hear back from him, and I was told by Suzanne, which is one of the executives here in Nashville, that we were going to see the chief of staff. And what happened, we did go see the chief of staff. He examined Eric very well, an examination that Eric had not had. And he talked to Eric. My one problem there was, it was almost as if the doctor was trying to talk to Eric the way that Eric was in service. It's all kind of a mind game, I feel like. But what had happened was Eric was in a lot of pain. He had been in deep depression, and I feel like sometimes, I don't know, is the VA trained? They say they are to deal with people with PTSD. I had emailed how I was concerned recently with Eric's health on his depression, and the doctor had brought up about him going to Hobbit, and Eric had lost all hope after that visit. The doctor had told him that it was a waste of his time. As a doctor, he was a nice doctor, but he gave my husband lost all hope after that video. So sometimes I think, are they trained to deal with the condition that my husband was in? Because I don't think they are. By telling someone, my husband was so excited to get this treatment, and if it was going to work or not, who cares? He was excited and thought it was going to change him. And to hear a doctor say that you're wasting your time, Eric's hope was shattered during that visit. And I lost him after that. So what I am telling you, this is just as short as possible, speaking from my heart on the care that we received. There's circus that we went around. And no one can tell me that my husband got the care that he deserved from the VA. And they should be ashamed of ourselves. Our government should be ashamed of themselves. And change needs to happen. My husband had 6 surgeries. 6 in a year and a half. Do you know what that alone does to a person? When you tell someone that they're not in pain, that it's mentally, and then I fight for x-rays. We wanted clearer image than x-rays, but I had to fight for x-rays to find out that he did have a tear in his shoulder and a torn hip, which still to this day, we didn't get any help with. But you want to tell me that my husband's addicted to pain medication when he hadn't actually been on any pain medication for months. You want to tell me that you gave him the care that he deserved? No, you didn't. I had to fight for him to go to Vanderbilt. I had to fight for him to get x-rays. I had to fight for him to be able to go to the ranch. And there was no support. You just made it harder on us. And you should be ashamed of yourselves. I hope that this brings change. And I don't know if I could do any other videos, but I will be fighting for change. Thank you.